Welcome to Talkin Business. I'm Joe Catrambone, CEO of the Stewart Martin County Chamber of Commerce, and it's my pleasure today to have a new member of our chamber. I've never met him before, so I'm going to be asking him a lot of questions that I like to know about people, especially members of our chamber. And Phil, you just joined.
Yes.
Phil Castrovinci.
Yes, thank you for inviting me.
And
It's a pleasure.
and thank you for joining. You've made a very wise business decision, and if you'd like, a social decision, because we do a lot of social events, networking events. I think that's probably what Wayne talked to you mostly about. I know Wayne convinced you, convinced you that you should join the chamber. So,
Well, it didn't need much convincing.
well, that's good. Thank you for that. So, one of the things I like to start out with is because the Treasure Coast and Martin County especially is such a unique place, and it's one of the things I like to ask people is, how did you end up in Martin County? Now I know you're moving to Stewart.
Correct, yes.
Congratulations. Hooray. You live in
Thank
St.
you.
Lucie County now.
Yes.
St. Lucie West.
Fort Pierce.
Oh, on Fort Pierce.
Yes.
Your office is in St. Lucie West.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, okay. And you do divorce
And family law
and family law
primarily.
practice. Okay. You have other attorneys with you, or you're by yourself right now?
No, I'm currently operating as a sole practitioner. I
Okay.
was with a firm down in Stewart as well, and I decided after practicing with them that I wanted to go out on my own. I felt that I had my experience because I'm a second generation divorce attorney. My father had his firm up on Long Island, which is where I'm originally from, where I'm sure your viewers figured out the first time I started talking. And so I always had it in me to an extent that I was planning on going out on my own. And just for personal reasons as well as professional reasons, I just felt the time was right to go out and establish my own firm, as I feel I can provide a service being a sole practitioner that some other firms may not be able to offer.
And you're living by your own rules, not somebody else's.
Exactly.
I think you made the right decision. I think everybody should, and if you're so inclined, there are obviously large law firms, and they all get along and they do great business and all. But I couldn't imagine being involved in a firm with 10 attorneys. So. So you're going to move to Stewart.
Yes, sir. Yes, I have my grandparents originally came down back in I believe it would be started coming down when I remember in the early 90s, late 90s, and they had a place on Hutchinson Island. Mm-hmm. And then so my family had been coming down to this area for a long time. And my original plan was I was going to work with my father up on Long Island. And unfortunately, he had some health issues that forced him into an early retirement. And so him and my mother decided to retire down here because they had been coming to the area for so long. And so I was planning on I was in a little bit of a limbo situation, as I had plans that, professional, saw myself going one way, and then as it happens, the universe decided something else. And so then COVID happened.
Oh.
And so when COVID happened, I was working up in New York, and just basically my parents were telling me they were still going out, enjoying themselves, and I was stuck in lockdown. So I decided to pack up my car, get me and my dog, and came down for a visit, and ultimately just fell in love with the place. This area, the community, everything about this.
It's not for everyone, but it's such an ideal location.
Yes.
The Treasure Coast itself, not just Stewart. And I live in Palm City, which is, part of Martin County. But you're an hour and a half out of Miami-Dade, or 2 hours the most. You're an hour and a half or 2 hours out of Miami, or Orlando, depending how fast you drive. So it's a really great location. But one of the things I tell, especially young people, if you're looking for nightlife, this is where you want to be. But you're not that far away from Palm Beach County. Now, you want nightlife, it goes all night. So, it is a great location, and it's obviously a wonderful place to raise a family. Are you married?
No, not currently.
Okay.
No, and that's something that also is going back to why I decided to go out on my own. It's me and my dog.
Yeah, well, that's good.
You
That's
know,
like me.
it's
That's me, and my dog. That's who and he's my best friend and
oh yeah.
great companion. He doesn't give me any back talk and
Oh,
doesn't have an opinion.
nope. Unless, don't give him the food he wants. Then I hear about it, definitely. But that's why I
What
figured
kind of dog do you have?
I have a little terrier mix. Yeah, so living in a condo currently, it's nice. I get to sit in my couch and throw a ball into the bedroom, and he gets his little workout, and still gets to hang out and play, but don't have to worry about dealing with the a big dog going up and down the stairs all the time. So
Yeah.
that's a nice little thing. But I've always grown up with dogs, and so that was something also that like
Me
my
too.
mom has a dog currently down in Stewart, so I bring him around and hang out with them, and then that's one of the things that I truly love about this area. Everything is dog friendly. It's such a nice thing going out, not having to worry, oh, we got to leave the dog at home.
Yeah.
Everybody loves dogs. The area loves dogs. And it's just one of those things that they make everything better.
Yeah, if not always, but if a restaurant doesn't have outdoor seating where I can bring him, I don't go. No, not always,
Yeah.
but that's the rule of thumb.
Yep.
So where'd you go to school?
For undergrad, I went to Malloy University, and I went there on a lacrosse scholarship. And then
Oh,
I
really?
went to, yes, I was an
Oh.
athlete, and that was my main sport was lacrosse.
Tough sport.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was definitely something that, I enjoyed because it gave me the best of both the physicality aspect, but then also a little bit more running around and, helped me stay in shape that way as well.
I don't know that much about lacrosse. Is it? I played football and I coached football. I coached high school football for a while, and I played football. So, is there? Football is clearly there's an offense and there's a defense. Do you, as in lacrosse, are you playing both? You're playing offense and defense, or how does?
There can be. There's a couple of different positions, and one of the positions does go back and forth on the offensive and the defensive end, whereas I primarily played on the defensive end. And so that was something that
You like banging into people.
Exactly. And one of the things that I almost in a weird way is helpful with my legal career is that I always had to make sure I knew everything. I knew where all the players were, I knew where the ball was, always had to keep where I was on the field. And so I keep that mentality to an extent when I'm working on a case or something, is that I got to always remember, I need to remember all of the pieces, all of the aspects, where is everything going. I can't have the short-sighted, can't make the short-sighted move without thinking about how these plays going to come out ahead. Similar to like playing a sport or something where you have to know what's going to happen and think about the strategy and not just make immediate reactions. And so I feel that being an athlete has helped me with that as well in my legal career.
It absolutely does. And so many people who haven't been involved in athletics, it molds your life, and it gives you perspective, and it teaches you certainly how important it is to work with a team and work together with people. So athletics are so important, and a lot of people think it's just an ancillary thing that a kid does in high school, and it is probably, but it's such a learning experience. In my opinion, it molds your adult life and how you think and how you approach things. Not everybody thinks that way, but I'm entitled to my opinion, and that's my opinion. So you did undergrad. Where did you say?
It was Malloy University.
Okay, and then
I went to, it was Toro Law School, which was also on Long Island, as again, my plans were to, knowing I was practicing with my father or planning on practicing with him, I went to a smaller law school that allowed me to work with him full time while also attending law school full time. And so one of the reasons, not only do law schools give you certain education differences, but a lot is also valued on the alumni, the name, the rank of the school,
oh
and
my
stuff
gosh,
like
yeah,
that.
for sure,
And
especially in the legal profession.
Oh yes. There's certain firms, certain things like that will only hire Ivy League. Will only look at if you did law review or some of those things that are very competitive. But doesn't exist so much in my field. That's much more of a issue in things like big contract cases or big corporations, mergers, and stuff like that. Whereas with what I do, I can tell you, nobody in my field asks each other where they went to law school.
Well, yeah, to me, that corporate law would be it would be boring.
Exactly.
Reading documents and crossing the I's or dotting the I's and crossing that would drive me crazy. But criminal law would excite me, and even the practice that you do. Divorce must be.
It's I don't want to call it exciting because
It's
nobody.
it's got to be. It's got to be. It's got to
Interesting.
be, yeah, to
It's-
say the
it's-
least.
Oh yeah, every day is, I've been working in this field for about 12 years now. I've been practicing myself for about 5 years, and every day something new is coming up because every case is as different as every family is. And so, although I've been doing this for a while and think, okay, it's another child support case. Oh, but there's a wrinkle in there for whatever the difference is with the families, the individuals, and the people like that. So yes, it's absolutely, because I had that same concerns, or not concerns rather, but thoughts about going if I went corporate, if I went a certain route. I don't want to sit in my office and just read contracts and edit and fight over those
Yeah,
little things.
God, no,
As much as I am dealing with people who aren't always in the best position, I do enjoy being able to help people out and knowing when they're in a tough spot that they come to me and have questions and trying to help them out and set them, not only themselves, but if there's kids involved, and try and do what's best for the entire family unit as a whole. And I try and practice with a philosophy that, excuse me, I'm not emotionally invested in this. And that allows me to keep a logical thought process. And you, to an extent, your family lawyer, you don't really want them getting angry. You don't want them being frustrated, because then that's going to create problems within the case. And so you would want, and the way I look at it is in the sense of, I'm not the emotional one. I'm the one whose job it is to keep everything on track and allow this process to go through, which is a very emotionally difficult process and a straining process. And what the lawyers are supposed to do is make it easier. We're not supposed to step in and create problems.
Don't
We're
fuel the
not
fire.
Exactly.
There's already a fire burning. Right?
Oh yeah, the joke that I use is that everybody needs to play nice in the sandbox. Everybody get along. You may not like each other, but that's how cases, unfortunately, and there are certainly some individual attorneys who don't have the same philosophy that I do, but that truly, if the emotions aren't involved, then the cases shouldn't. I'm sure everybody's heard the nightmares and the horror stories of how cases take years and years to work out, and there's fighting, and they cost, a college tuition has now been spent on the lawyers. And that can happen because people get angry. And so I feel it's the lawyer's job not to allow that to infect things. We are there separating, we're also counselors. I feel this is an area of law more than most others where there has to be counseling. It is my responsibility to not let my client make an emotional decision, to maybe take an extra second before responding to an angry text message or an angry email or something posted on social media, because we don't want to create that problem
Oh
in the
my
middle.
God, I can't imagine. When I was divorced many, many years ago, and I can't imagine what it would have been like then with if social media and texting and cell phones were it was bad enough then,
Oh,
Is it difficult for you not to get emotionally involved? I mean, you've got a client you're representing, and your opponent's got, or the other person's got and isn't it difficult not to get?
Oh yeah, and it took me a long time and years of working
Yeah, I
in
mean-
this to not get excited, not
Yeah.
get upset,
Yeah.
not want to respond in kind. And it ultimately took sitting down with, again, my father, my original mentor, and explaining that if I start getting upset and allowing myself to feel that way, not only am I going to lose the sight of the big picture, but other attorneys, other parties can pick up on that.
Oh yeah,
And they can realize
it's a weakness. They
exactly,
think it's a weakness. Yeah.
Exactly. So if they know, if the other people or if the clients and everybody, even if you're my client individually, and you think I get upset and then I respond, that may put you in an uncomfortable position. So absolutely, there are times, and there are still to this day, there are some cases and some incidents that I do think about constantly. And there are a number of cases that I know I still see very clearly and think about regularly. And so I can't say and won't say that I'm completely removed from the
Avoid,
situation.
yeah.
Yes.
That would, God, that I couldn't, I, I would be in with both feet, you know?
Well, I look at it as, and I try and operate, this is my uniform.
Yeah.
Even
yeah.
if I'm not meeting with a single client, doing nothing but office work, I still get up, put on a shirt, put on a pair of dress pants, occasionally my jacket or a tie. So that way it allows me when I go home and take off my suit, I can take it off. When I'm not
Yeah,
in my uniform, I'm not at
right,
work, I'm
right.
not being
You
the
chill
divorce
out.
attorney, I can go back to being a human being that doesn't deal with the unfortunate reality of what the business that I've chosen to go into.
Well, it's not quite as bad as this other areas like criminal law and things of that. I mean, there's a lot of emotion involved
Yeah.
in the divorce thing. It's not where you're dealing with a murderer it's not.
Well, the most difficult, not to cut you off, but
Yeah.
the most difficult type of law that I've been exposed to and worked in is when I originally moved down here, I had to retake the bar exam. And wanting to go back to work right away while I was waiting for my admission, one of the few places that was hiring was Children's Legal Services, who is the legal arm of the Department of Children and Families. And so I worked with them. And my job there was, I wasn't exactly a prosecutor, but I was essentially a state attorney handling abuse and neglect cases and dealing with some
That's
of
the worst.
Yeah, that in my
That is,
opinion is.
you're absolutely correct. Anything to do with children and
Yeah.
abuse, that's horrible.
And so as much as that was something that I didn't want to do long term, I am thankful that I spent the time working there. Not only one, I made some great connections and can tell you that I understand people that may not appreciate or think that those people are doing the best. But everybody I came across in the department, and especially with Children's Legal Services, truly do care about children more than anything else. Of course, there's some humps along the way, but that is truly their goal. But the benefit that it's used for me that I'm able to use in my practice now is, unfortunately, I've been exposed to some bad things. I've been exposed to the reality that there are monsters in this world. And that's used good and bad for when I'm dealing with, unfortunately, if there's some type of abuse or an allegation of abuse. I have a background that I actually have seen it and I've looked at it. And so I can very quickly look into a case in a factual situation and determine, is there actual abuse here, or is it thankfully not this level of severity, but people individually think it is. Because that's one of the other things that come across a lot as well is, parents, young parents, a first child, a second child, that's what their experience is. And so if the other parent or something happens that they don't agree with, they don't like, they think there's doing something wrong to the child. But and they try and get me or talk to me about, oh, you have to help me, you have to protect the child. That's not the inquiry the court is doing. The court isn't looking at who is a better parent between the two of you to an extent. Because again, the court has to unfortunately deal with some truly nasty situations. And so it's almost a good thing that few cases do rise to the level of severity as it relates with child abuse or things like that. Because if you have those facts, that means something traumatic has happened to a child. And so I'm almost very happy and thankful that I've had the experience I've had. So when I do meet with parents who think something is happening or something rises to the level of abuse, I'm able to explain to them that it's not as bad as they may think it is subjectively, because they've only seen certain things. And so I've been lucky that not lucky, but I'm fortunate that I can allow parents and have that conversation from, no, be thankful your child hasn't been abused.
Yes.
Because that's something that I believe sticks with a child much longer than the case is over with. And so
Their life.
Oh yeah. And that's something that, like I said, there's certainly monsters in this world, and I've had the unfortunate experience of dealing with some of them. But I'm able to use that experience to when I'm talking with parents about how, be happy your ex isn't as bad as you may think they are. I understand you hate them. I understand you guys don't get along. But just because your relationship is broken down, or he may have been a bad husband, she may have been a bad wife, that doesn't automatically mean they're a bad parent. And that doesn't automatically translate to their abusing the child. And so I feel, especially as I started talking a little bit about earlier, this is such a almost intimate type of law that there has to be a trusting relationship between me as the lawyer and the client. And this, I believe, it is true with all areas of law, but especially dealing with what I do in divorce and family law. If I'm telling a parent, you don't have the factual situation to prevent the other parent from getting any time sharing or any access, it's not because I don't want you to have that. It's because my experience and my knowledge has shown that those facts don't exist in this case, which is a good thing at the end of the day. It's a good
Yeah.
thing that the facts don't exist, because in order to have gotten those facts, the child, unfortunately, something must happen.
You know, and I don't believe that, you know, there's so much emotion involved in a divorce case, and I'm not an attorney, obviously, but just from a layman's perspective, and there's got to be vindictiveness.
Oh, yes.
Probably in almost every case. Maybe not in every case.
Oh, yes.
But what the parent doesn't realize is what kind of an effect it has on the children.
Oh, yeah.
Being vindictive with each other and showing hatred towards each other.
Yeah.
I mean, that has to affect the child for the rest of their life.
Oh, yeah.
But so many, I don't know whether people don't realize it or they just don't care. It's about them.
Well, one of the things that I have started doing in my practice when I take on new clients is I ask them to write down 2 or 3 of the most important things they want from the outcome of this case. And one of the reasons I do that is so when things start going and the anger comes out, the fighting, I remind them of this. Because nobody puts in the beginning, I want to fight, I want to waste the money on the lawyers. That's not what anybody wants to do. But unfortunately, you are very true that the anger, or what I refer to as the venom, does come out oftentimes. And the judge she was formerly the family law judge up in Indian River, Judge Cox. She used to tell parents, which I've taken from her and that I've also started using a lot as well, is that kind of going with what you're talking about, that, okay, you and him, you and her, your relationship is over, but you made a child together. That child is half of that other parent. So if you say something negative about that parent to that child, you're basically telling that child half of you is no good. And I really, well, the first time I
That's a
heard her
great
say that, I
ploy.
truly
That's
believe
really-
that.
Yeah, it is true.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
And so, yeah, she was another person who, you know, just really had an understanding, and I have a lot of respect for in the industry because she was able to see through and remind parents of that. And so that's why I try and that's also something I use in my practice of, this isn't about fighting. This isn't about who can, you know, make the other person look bad. Most of the time when cases take years to resolve and cost lots of money, usually somebody's being the bad actor. It could be a parent, and again, unfortunately, there are some lawyers out there who create problems where they shouldn't be. But most often, if people are truly trying to resolve the issues amicably, if they're truly looking for what's in the children's best interests, you need the lawyers to help finalize things, not necessarily do everything. And I tell parents this a lot as well, and some of the judges also have said this to parents. Me as the lawyer, the judge, we're not involved in your life forever. If you have a small child and you have a paternity case or you have a divorce, whether you settle or wind up in a trial, you're going to get a parenting plan. The court orders that, and that outlines things like parental responsibility, decision making, who has what holidays, the time sharing, and stuff like that. I can tell you, I practice this way. I tell my clients all of this, and most attorneys, in my opinion, who are being honest about this should do this as well. My hope is we go to a settlement, you guys settle, and then you put the parenting plan in a desk drawer somewhere and nobody ever looks at it again. It's supposed to be there as a default. Because the idea is, again, if you have a child and you're done with court, you're involved in each other's lives until that child's 18, theoretically ages out. And if you continuously fight, you continuously go back and forth, you're going to be back in court every couple of years. You're going to not be able to work with each other. You're going to need, hey, can we swap holidays? My new fiance wants to go on a trip. And at the end of the day, the child is the ultimate, or children are the ones who usually end up suffering because of that. And that's why I've had a lot of litigation experience. I was somebody, again, my father's firm had a reputation as being a litigation firm, as he had some nasty cases that he dealt with. And so I have litigated a lot. I've done a number of trials down here, up in New York, throughout different courts. And so that also gives me the knowledge and experience that settlement should be a first priority. It should be trying to work things out amongst the parents, amongst the parties in a divorce if there aren't kids involved, because a lot of it comes down to math. And what I mean by that is it's money. If you're splitting up assets, unless there's a sentimental connection,
Probably always.
there's value.
Yeah.
And so what I like to do, especially with clients, is I go, look, we can settle at this, but if we go to court, it's going to take this much more time and my fees are going to go up. So how, what
That'll
is
get
it
their
worth
attention.
it? Yeah, I find it's, like I said, our job, in my belief as the attorney, is to try and get this process and make this process as smooth and as easy for both parties involved as possible. But that certainly doesn't mean that there are cases and are the times when litigation needs to happen. Because as I said, there are some unfortunately dangerous people. There are people who are trying to take advantage of other people. And so I have the ability to litigate when need be. But I truly believe that if possible, settlement should be the first and primary desired outcome.
It is a desired outcome.
Yeah.
Well, Phil, we're winding down. Is there something that we missed that you might want to talk about? Or?
Well, there is just so that one thing that is interesting that some people may have heard about was how the law recently changed last summer. I believe it was in July that they drastically changed. One of the biggest changes was there's now what's called a rebuttable presumption to equal time sharing. And a lot of fathers' rights people have championed that is now there's no longer this unequal presumption that mom gets the kid and dad pays for it. There's now the standing as it relates to the both parties are entitled to, again, it's called a rebuttable presumption for equal time sharing. And now that does have its good and bad things of it. There's the good is to now it allows the father or somebody who may not have been the primary parent when things were going well, doesn't have to worry about proving or fighting for how much time they should have with their child. But on the flip side of that, occasionally you'll have parents, or again, it's usually the father, but not always, and certainly changing, have a father who may not have actually had to do, overnights with a newborn or overnights with an infant. And so they're demanding 50-50, but that's because they believe that's what the law says. And so I would just remind people, and we want to add out there, that although, yes, that is now a rebuttable presumption for that, that doesn't mean that's automatically what everybody should do. And if people want to continue and have those questions, by all means, feel free to contact me and we can have that conversation as to why maybe your case, even if you are entitled to it, may not be what's ultimately best for your family itself.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, sir.
I
It was a
appreciate you
pleasure.
taking the time to come up and meet with us.